this stuff is. But basically, you have to have a consistent message to crystallize. You got to crystallize all that group. You got to put everything together. The network immediately comes together. The idealism is always going to be separate. In the American Revolution, they all had all these different radical ideals. Some businessmen, some greedy businessmen, some radical, bloodthirsty revolutionaries. Some of them just interested in land. Some interested in politics. But all that came second to baseball, all that came second to their consistent message, all that came second to common sense. But a lot of them use common sense to greedily support themselves or greedily promote themselves. Nothing wrong with that, because every time they promoted common sense, they promoted the revolution, which in fact promoted their business interests, so on and so forth. Nothing wrong with that. Everyone's got different motivations, and this stuff is very dynamic. But don't underestimate the power of sound. Most of you, in fact everyone hearing this, will have been driving in a car at one time, get to work, 3 hours later a song pop in your head and you can't even remember hearing it on the way to work. You can't unhear something. What's interesting when it comes to the mantra, and if you listen to White Rabbit Genocide, that's my version of the mantra. It's serious stuff, but one of the interesting things about it is we had conditioned for 3 or 4 years prior online, doing newsnets and stuff like that. I don't really know, but they were copying and pasting it across several different forums, several different groups, several different forums globally. Just recently, I've had someone from a conservative forum and another from an environmental forum saying that they'd seen the mantra before. Well, that's kind of interesting because you're dealing with a new technology like the internet. I didn't know how that would work. You know, typically you condition with different sounds. I don't know if you can unread something, or I don't know if people can remember things that they just sort of read 3 years ago. I don't know. It's such a new technology. We didn't know how that'd work. But that had been done 3 years prior to you hearing me. Everything's done in steps. It's a patented process, but when you start talking the internet and Twitter, that's new. Twitter is very new. This stuff is very, very new. But I spent a lot of time telling you about demystifying Bob is essential so you use his stuff. Making myself into another legitimate name that you can think is bad news. Is bad news, counterproductive. If I were to come out, I was asked by actually 3 different groups now if I'd like to do a radio show, put out the message they would like me to do a radio show talking about politics, or fascinated by my political analysis. I'm very flattered by that, and I explained to all of them that I had to do this. This was not for my own purposes. Horus the Avenger is for the indigenous white rabbits of Europe. I'm not doing this to promote myself. I told them that if I did a show, it would be under my own name. How about that? My own name, I would do a show, and that's how that would work someday. I don't have a problem with that, I don't guess, other than I don't really have the time for it right now, but you get my point. This isn't about me, but it is about you. And I want you to use greedily for your own interests, like James Edwards will at the Political Cesspool. Is he on the? I don't even know if he knows that we got talking points. They're pretty new. This stuff is new. You haven't heard me before. It's very, very new. Maybe a friend just told you about me. Well, I'm here for you. I'm here to pass on info, so on and so forth. But it's very important for you to understand in your little white rabbit heads how this stuff works. To demystify it, and I don't want to add myself a new mystery. If I were to run for politics, I would run as my own name. I would bring out my own name, and I would use this greedily for my own interests, knowing that I'm advertising I'm a baseball player. This is the game going. The game going right now is baseball. You got to play baseball. To play baseball, you got to have a consistent message, and you got to use that to promote yourself greedily in whatever way you shape, manner, form. But every time you defend yourself by saying, in your opinion, I'm a racist, you're just saying that because I'm white. Anti-racism is a code word for anti-white. Guess what? Anytime you open your mouth and say that, you help out white rabbits. You will second guess this technology until you see it work. I mean, you might second guess, oh, well, yes, we can, but a lot of stupid white rabbits voted for him, didn't they? Don't second guess what we're doing. Know what we're doing. Bob Whitaker, they called up Stormfront, and they wanted someone out from Stormfront on Fox News. And I told you Bob Whitaker went out there. He said the mantra twice. The cameraman dropped the camera. We're on a list. They don't want us to talk. Why we don't do anything illegal, but we show you how to play baseball. They don't want you knowing we exist. Well, there's a reason for that. Use our talking points one day and you will find out. It works. It works. They cannot triangulate off of it. They cannot control the energy. Once we start controlling the energy, it's going to go right in our direction. They cannot do anything about it. And I will go into a few more things here. See if I want to say anything else on a consistent message. Hopefully you understand why it's important. You got to have Thomas Paine. You got to have a common sense. You got to use that to promote your idealism. It's okay to have whatever group or ideal you want, but you got to use that first. Anything if you have a consistent message articulated, you can go anywhere you want to go. Baseball or basketball. Right, I can show you all kinds of mini commie revolutions. They were part velvet, especially in Africa. They were part dealing steel and part velvet, but they had to have a consistent message first. That's what we do. That's what we do. That's what we know how to do. We know how to make you look like a genius. You know, but I'll be back, and we're going to go in. We're going to go in a couple different directions, but I'm going to keep on doing a review, and this review might go longer than I thought, simply because it's some of the stuff is so important for you to get again and again. I used some symbolism that was escaped on a lot of European rabbits, and that's the golden horn, the silver whistle. You can buy certain whistles that'll break glass. Yeah, they break it with sound. They don't break it you don't throw the whistle, you just blow the whistle and the glass breaks. It's an old trick. In the Bible, there's the sound symbolism with the children of Israel had to march around the walls of Jericho so many times and blow the horn. Well, the horn brought down the walls. The horn did that. Sound did it. Didn't matter how many times they tried to storm the walls. It didn't matter how many weapons they threw at the walls. They just stood there until they blew the horn until they hit the consistent note. And you can do other glass. You can blow certain whistles and they won't break, and then all of a sudden you hit the right note and the glass just shatters. That's how sound works. Sound is like that. The Berlin Wall. During your lifetime, most likely you saw the Berlin Wall come down. The Berlin Wall did not come down through bullets. It didn't come down through warfare. No, it's just a different game. It came down through sound. They did it through a consistent message. At the right tone, at the right decimals, just boom, the wall came down. Now, Yugoslavia happened. There were some violent incidents as an outcome in places like Yugoslavia, but that happened well after the fact. First, you got to bring down the wall. That's what we know how to do, bring down walls. That's hopefully that simplified symbolism. Some of this stuff, is for the English language. I haven't converted it into other languages per se, but we've noticed there's been questions about genocide. How is this genocide? Most rabbits on this planet are ill-versed in international law. White rabbits, no different. If you're in America or anywhere in Western civilization, even in Russia, a lot of times to get an indictment, you got to get a grand jury, and you got to present evidence to that grand jury, and then you get an indictment, then you get some kind of trial. Usually the trial's fair. For instance, if you went to trial for jaywalking and in London, it'd probably be pretty fair. If you went to trial for jaywalking in Iowa, it'd probably be pretty fair. It depends on what it is. If you went on trial for saying the word nigger in London, it probably would not be fair. You'd go to jail. But you get the point. You're generally going to get a trial, and those trials are determined to be fair. Most of the world thinks that the Western civilization has fair trials. Well, first off, there's never been a fair tribunal. There's a difference between a tribunal is what happens in international law. International law supersedes all national law. The definition of genocide is quite simple. The definition we're using is Article 2 of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. It's basically from 1948, and everything has really come out of that. It happened after Nuremberg. Two events grandfathered in would have been the Holocaust, what happened in Nuremberg, but there's another event grandfathered in that you haven't heard about, and that's Ukraine, but they've never got anything going over that. The starvation in Ukraine, Holodomor, or whatever they call it. millions and millions of Ukrainians starved to death. Yes, look it up. But basically, that